hell to pay. That's the warning a senior Trump ally issued to world leaders who go along with the arrest warrant issued by the International Criminal Court for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Kevin Roberts, who leads the influential Heritage Foundation, a think tank credited with much of Donald Trump's policy agenda, and as an incubator for at least 4 of the incoming president's major executive appointments to date, well, last night he revealed to GBNews the fury of the incoming administration towards what many in Trump's orbit regard as an illegitimate court. To date, the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has tried to fudge the issue of whether or not the United Kingdom would abide by this arrest warrant. He's refused to answer questions directly as to whether British police would actually arrest the Israeli leader were he to set foot on British soil. So unlike our Prime Minister to be sitting on the fence. Well, Sir Keir Starmer may have to come off that fence soon, as Roberts made it clear to GB News that there will be hell to pay. This is a direct quote. There'll be hell to pay for any international leader buying into this bullshit. Well, Trump becomes the US president on the 20th of January, at which point he'll be able to exert extraordinary pressure on both foes and allies alike. The extraordinary decision of the International Criminal Court to issue an arrest warrant has split the international community so far. Leaders from Ireland, the Netherlands, Belgium, Spain, Slovenia and Austria have all said they would arrest Netanyahu, whilst so far only the United States and Hungary have been utterly unambiguous from day one in saying they would refuse to do so. Significantly, when asked directly about the warrant, Germany's chief government spokesman, well, he's told reporters that it's hard to imagine that arrests could be made in Germany on this basis. But Italy and the United Kingdom have all made noises, warm noises, towards upholding the Rome Convention. That's the convention that underpins the International Criminal Court. It's led many to speculate that these 2 G7 countries would indeed arrest Benjamin Netanyahu, though both refuse to say so specifically, relying on what's known as strategic ambiguity. Well, that ambiguity may not hold for long, as Donald Trump is soon to return to the White House. Interestingly, the sands may have been shifting this very morning, when France has shifted from its ambiguous stance, only to announce this morning, late this morning, that Netanyahu is entitled to immunity from International Criminal Court arrest warrants because Israel is not a party to the court. Well, perhaps those sands are indeed already shifting, although of course it's taken days for France to reach this position. Well, for his part, Donald Trump's senior allies are clear. They hold the International Criminal Court in very low esteem. Indeed, the United States and Israel both withdrew from the ratification process of the ICC all the way back in 2002. Well, that means neither country is a party to the judgments of the court. For his part, Donald Trump has signalled his intent to use trade sanctions and tariffs, all as a geopolitical tool to ensure countries bend to his will. At the helm of the world's richest and most powerful economy, President Trump will have significant levers, all to exert pain on countries that act in ways he simply does not like. Hell to pay could see targeted tariffs or freezing out of wider cooperation. Now, this could be particularly damaging for the United Kingdom, which has hoped for a free trade agreement with the United States, but also works incredibly closely on intelligence sharing through the Five Eyes network. Another headache for the United Kingdom is that one man with Donald Trump's ear is, of course, Elon Musk. The world's richest man has described Keir Starmer's Britain as a tyrannical police state, and already threatened to haul British politicians before United States congressional committees to defend their anti-free speech legislation. Could this combination of this steady drumbeat of negative news about Britain under Keir Starmer, about Britain's leadership, all together with the insulting language used by senior Labour politicians towards Donald Trump, and now this clear threat raised by the Heritage Foundation president, Kevin Roberts, for those leaders who blindly follow the ICC warrant. Well, could it all add up to a tangible cocktail of terrible news for Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer? Quite possibly. The incoming United States President has also suggested he might not uphold the Article 5 obligations to defend NATO countries in the event that they're attacked. Article 5 of the treaty ensures an attack against one is an attack against all, meaning European countries have been able to rely on America's powerful military to ensure their defence for 70 years. Could part of hell to pay see that protection withdrawn? Well, only time will tell. What's clear is that we're past the point of soft, deliberative diplomatic relations. Welcome to the era of hard power. Hard power will shift the sands of diplomatic relations. For 70 years, we've relied on global institutions, we've relied on diplomatic efforts. It, of course, used to be the case that the biggest gunboat won the day. Gunboat diplomacy as it grew over the 18 and 1900s and ended, really, with the settlements at the end of the Second World War. Well, that tracked the expansion and the global influence of particularly Great Britain, the country that was known to be the ruler of the waves with the largest and most powerful nation and navy known to man. That baton clearly has been handed over since the end of the Second World War. The term superpower was first invented amidst the Second World War to describe three countries: the Soviet Union, the British Empire, and the United States. Well, only one of those countries exists in the form that it did then, today. Yes, the sole superpower of the world is the United States. And under President Trump, we might see a United States that's even less concerned with international structures, with those systems of co-obligation, with those geopolitical forums, with perhaps those supranational structures that sit above the rights of individual countries. Perhaps we're entering into a very different era, where the structures of international trade, of deliberation, whether it's the WTO or the UN, even regional forums, as we saw with the dismantlement and change of NAFTA into what's known as the USMCA, or the suspicion with which unions like the European Union are held in the eyes of Donald Trump. All of these international forums will be held under a great deal of suspicion. Indeed, the relevance of international law as it's grown over the decades, may well be starting to fade. What does that mean for the United Kingdom, and what does that mean for the world? A more renegade United States could lead to challenges, but also opportunities. After all, we only need to look at the Chagos Islands, that archipelago in the South Indian Ocean, that clearly has been drifting away from the United Kingdom due to international remits. Yes, there have been judgments in international courts that the United Kingdom Foreign Office takes incredibly seriously. So seriously that this government, that our government, is desperate to hand over the sovereignty of those islands to Mauritius, a country that never formally controlled the Chagos Islands in the first place. Well, in this brave new world of perhaps taking less account of international judgments, could it be that those deliberations should be less heeded to by our own Foreign Office? Is that why it seems that Donald Trump is perhaps more keen to disregard the Mauritian claims for those islands? It's an analogous situation. Whether it's the International Criminal Court or forums of the United Nations, perhaps these forums of international law, and most particularly the binding nature of many of these international systems, perhaps those are starting to weaken. Perhaps there is a global rowback on those structures that we saw grow and grow over decades and decades. Now, of course, whilst there are some benefits to that, there are also huge challenges. After all, if one nation goes rogue, more may follow. The United Kingdom has enjoyed stability amongst the global theatre. The United Kingdom's trade has relied on predictable rules. If the world gets less predictable, if we're less able to hold other countries to the same standards by which we hold ourselves, could this be a dangerous and damaging future ahead? Only time will tell. But what we do know is that this is a very different era of international relations that we're setting a path along. What we do know is that the next 4 years could well define the next 40. I've been Tom Harwood for GB News. Do be sure to subscribe to the GB News YouTube channel for more exclusive content.